Blockchain gets a stigma sometimes. Why is that?
I don't know.
Is it the association with Bitcoin or the lack of understanding of what blockchain is?
The short answer is people are lazy. They don't try to educate themselves about the technology. And yeah, it's very easy. And I've met a few very, very smart people, and for them it took weeks to understand it, right? There is a learning curve. It took weeks for you?
No, I think it's not people being lazy. It doesn't give them, like when the internet started 15, 20 years ago, my parents, within like 1 or 2 years of me being on it, asked me to send emails. Even my grandma did, and she wanted to pay me for the postage to Canada.
That's true. But
blockchain now exists for 10 years almost, but my parents don't see any use case which I can do through the current system. So I think either the interface is way too complex or the use case isn't explained well, and I don't think you can blame them for being lazy.
Right. I'm not talking about people like my mom or my dad. I'm talking about people who, like, their job is to understand technology, and they just say, no, this is nonsense. And there is a learning curve, and again, people, consultants and journalists, we had this amazing email exchange with Pamela Whitby, and I don't know, it took us like 20 emails to kind of wrap our heads around what is that, and she did a great job, covering what that technology is. And she was sometimes emailing me and saying, hey, I was having a dinner with my family, and I was explaining them what it is, and they asked me all these questions that I cannot answer. So here they are, right? And like 10 questions. There is a learning curve. It's not easy to understand it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do that, by the way. The concept, if you want a 1 minute or 30 seconds idea, is Bitcoin was created to remove intermediaries from financial transactions. That was the goal. That was the plan. And that idea of creating systems where we don't need an intermediary anymore to conduct certain transactions is absolutely the core. That is it, right? Easy to understand, that basic idea. The implications, much, much harder. And there is a bunch of really, really smart people out there who right now are working on all sorts of absolutely crazy use cases for that my dad wouldn't understand. He doesn't even think about that, how it can change democracy, governance, politics, like all those things, right?
I think, if I may add to that, I don't know if anybody was at I for Travel earlier this year, but there was a panel about blockchain, and the title of the panel was Demystifying Blockchain. But I won't say who the 3 people on the panel were, but unfortunately Max couldn't actually fly in, he couldn't get a visa. But the 3 people by the end were laughing about blockchain. And they were very, very senior people in our industry. And the moderator at the end said, well, I don't know if we've demystified it or made it more confusing. These are exactly the same people who were laughing about the internet being used for hotel reservations 20 years ago, in my opinion. And not the 3 panelists, because they were pretty smart and multi-millionaires, but the same sort of mindset. I remember presenting in Berlin at ITB in 1998, and people came up to me afterwards. I was working at CNN at the time. And people came up afterwards and said, Richard, what are you doing? Nobody is going to make a reservation or book a hotel on the internet. They'll always have to speak to someone first. Do you know that if you'd invested $50,000 in Booking.com in 2007, you'd have 14 million in the bank right now? I think they made a big mistake. My view is that blockchain is potentially the most innovative new idea in our industry for 20 years. What we need is really, really smart people to figure out how to use it.
So, Stuart, we talked about OTAs. You guys are coming in from a different angle with direct bookings. The whole idea of blockchain, and while we're on the topic, is decentralized. So, essentially, you could book on a platform cutting out the middleman and, I guess, make for a more competitive market. Is this something that you guys think about?
So I'll be perfectly honest, at the minute we're not investing in blockchain just because, again, you need, it's the investment you need to actually understand it is huge. Now, it's not saying we're not going to look at it, but at the minute we're not. But I still think it's fascinating. I mean, it is one of the, it's such an incredible technology. And I think for the hotel industry in particular, it's going to have quite wide implications. But I don't think you'll really have to deal with understanding the blockchain from a hotel's perspective. The technology providers will come and give you something that will use it underneath the hood. And I can see like two massive areas where I think this is going to be hugely impactful in the near future. One is the supply chain for hotels. I think simplifying that and making it a distributed system will be incredible. And I mean, that's effectively what the blockchain is. It's a distributed data